talking about? And we back. We finna get into motherfucking the real 50 Cent. My fault. And the real 50 Cent. Don't nobody really know, but the real 50 Cent is like 5'2". He a little bitty nigga. Now I'm losing my voice, as you all can fucking see. But the original 50 Cent is total different type of beast from the rapper 50 Cent. So we finna actually dig into his story, because I really didn't really understand where he got this name from. I only know the fact that he on Eric B and Rakim album cover.
Easy vision right here. Okay, right here you see the Puerto Rican guy, that's rap. And you see the other guy, that's 50 Cent. And the notorious 50 Cent.
There's a lot of people walking around now with scars on them because of the 50. Them took losses because of the 50. And some people ain't here because of the 50.
Before Curtis Jackson ever became 50 Cent, who was the first man to own that, name, Kelvin Martin, 5'2", 120 pounds, 2 long barrel handguns in his waistband, a .357 and a Colt .45.
Man, I mean, this boy was so fish that he had 2 long barrel revolvers with him, trademark. Always had it. He's like a modern day gunslinger.
In 1980s New York, he robbed LL Cool J for his gold rope in a White Castle parking lot, snatched jewelry off members of...
Fuck was you doing in the White Castle's parking lot, nigga? The White Castle's is so fucking disgusting, nigga. Not to mention the fact that you got menace to society. That's fucked up, my nigga. You got caught slipping in the drive-thru. Your ass is tripping. You had too much money to be at fucking White Castle, nigga. You could have went to Burger King, McDonald's, any fucking where. Why the fuck would you go to this nasty ass restaurant?
Houdini ran a protection racket where he was both the threat and the insurance. Then showed up on the back cover of Eric B and Rakim's Paid in Full album, standing right next to the same rappers his crew had been terrorizing.
50 Cent was just anybody and everybody. Your next door neighbor, the guy you hear about, the street legend, your friend, what I'm saying, your brother. It's so many different 50 Cents, you don't know which one came to the party.
On October 20th, 1987, someone came for him, shot in a Crown Heights stairwell, dead at 23 after 4 days in the hospital. The trigger? A teenager who claimed he was kidnapped and forced to do it. So who really wanted Kelvin Martin gone? And how did his name end up becoming one of the biggest brands in hip-hop history? Let's get into it. Kelvin Darnell Martin was born on July 24th, 1964, in the South Bronx. People in the neighborhood called him Lil Shaft. His parents separated when he was around 8 years old, and according to family members, his mother pinned a note to his shirt, put him on a city bus, and sent him across New York to live with his grandmother, Irene Martin, in a Puerto Rican neighborhood in the Bronx. The arrangement didn't last. Eventually, the family relocated to Brooklyn, and Martin ended up in Unit 11H of Building A in the Monument Walk section of the Raymond Veer Ingersoll houses, the Fort Greene projects.
Kelvin Martin actually grew up here in the Ingersoll houses, which is right next to the Walt Whitman houses on Myrtle Avenue.
This was the late 1970s. New York City was broke. Factories had closed. City services had been slashed. Fort Greene was one of the hardest hit neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Martin chose the streets early. By his late teens, he'd caught his first charges street. Hustling, petty stick-ups, the kind of low-level crimes that were practically a write-up. Passage in Fort Greene during the late 70s. But what set Martin apart, even then, was a specific detail that would define his entire career. He never tried to hide who he was. No mask, no alias during jobs. He robbed people face to face and dared them to say something about it. Martin assembled a crew of teenagers.
They bogus how they got the little fake 50 Cent, but no. If you know one thing about New York got Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is known for robbing niggas. They known for having a lot of robbery ass niggas, stick up kids and shit like that. That's what they call them. But the funny part about all of this shit is how small this nigga is. I could just imagine this little ass nigga running up on me if I'm LL Cool J and I'm like my size, nigga. I don't know, but I guess he had to get that shit up because it's a gun in your motherfucking face. And back then, there wasn't no motherfucking cameras. But you couldn't be no pussy neither, as you could see, because this nigga's doing this shit with no fucking mask on. But that's when they say they was built different back then. Fuck you talking about. A lot of niggas ain't even really ready to do all this shit, bro. Niggas know what the fuck you look like. That mean they can find where the fuck you be.
out of the Fort Greene projects and called them the Brooklyn Zoo. Their operation was simple: rob anyone, anywhere, by any means necessary, but the scale of it was something else entirely. The Brooklyn Zoo hit nightclubs. They ran through the Latin Quarter in Manhattan, one of hip-hop's most famous venues in the mid-80s. They hit Harlem World. They hit the Roxy. The move was always the same: roll into the club, identify partygoers wearing gold chains and carrying designer bags, and strip them on the way out. The crew fenced the stolen jewelry and designer purses for cash afterward. In Brooklyn, it was the same pattern at different locations: the Brooklyn Armory, the Empire Skating Rink, Albee Square Mall. If a crowd gathered somewhere in Fort Greene or the surrounding neighborhoods, the Brooklyn Zoo showed up to work. Martin once went to a Rick James concert at the Meadowlands in East Rutherford, New Jersey, not to see the show. He went specifically to rob fans in the crowd. While most of Fort Greene was trying to get into the crack trade, Martin wanted nothing to do with it. His targets were the dealers themselves. Stash houses, dealers carrying cash. The logic was straightforward. The drug money was already counted, already bundled, and the victims couldn't exactly go to the police. On top of the robberies, Martin built a protection racket. He'd approach store owners and drug dealers in the neighborhood and offer to keep them safe from violence and vandalism. The ones who paid, he left alone. The ones who didn't, Martin would send his crew to rob them, break their windows, run off their customers. He was selling protection from himself. After a stint in prison, Martin came back to Brooklyn and aligned himself with a local crew connected to a Supreme team, set based in Fort Greene, not the famous Jamaica, Queens operation run by Kenneth McGriff, but a Brooklyn set that shared the name. The added muscle expanded his reach beyond Fort Greene, and the consequences of all this were written on his body. Over the course of his career, Kelvin Martin was stabbed multiple times and shot at least 24 times across 9 separate incidents. He survived every single—
How the fuck did he live to get out of that? What the fuck? He only 5'2", nigga. 120 pounds. My nigga. And he took 24 bullets, nigga. And he got stabbed on multiple occasions, nigga. Like, what the fuck?
one until the last. Despite never being indicted for murder, people in the neighborhood attributed as many as 30 bodies to him. The robberies that turned Kelvin Martin from a neighborhood menace into a borough-wide legend weren't the ones that paid the most.
Wait, if you were locked up at any Illinois juvenile detention center, such as—
Stop getting locked up. You ain't gotta worry about getting raped, nigga. Fuck you talking about. We with this one.
They were the ones involving the biggest names in hip-hop. The most well-known incident involved LL Cool J. In the mid-1980s, LL was becoming a star. I Can't Live Without My Radio had dropped in 1985, and his debut album Radio was making him one of hip-hop's first crossover acts. According to multiple accounts, Martin approached a teenage James Todd Smith in the parking lot of a White Castle restaurant in Brooklyn and took his solid gold rope chain at gunpoint. Some accounts say Martin later gave the chain to his daughter.
And even court.
He need to get his ass robbed. He need to get his ass robbed for even just being in that motherfucking parking lot. But what I really want to get into is the fact that, one, I think it's funny as fuck that 50 Cent named himself after a nigga that robs niggas, because 50 Cent first song that blew for him is How to Rob. And majority of his songs, he talking about sticking niggas up. He ain't talking about sticking niggas up, he talking about serving niggas. But another thing also that stand out to me is just the simple fact that, like, this nigga got so much power. He ain't even 21 yet, I don't think. He got crews doing shit for him off the fly and shit. One thing I can respect, though, about him, they ain't really saying too much about his murders, but he ain't doing no senseless, I guess, murders, you could say. I don't see him, like, you feel me? It just seems like he just really robbing niggas. So if he didn't shot a nigga, I don't know. I'm not really into robbing niggas. That's not a thing I condone. But it's just the fact that this nigga's like this big. And he running up on niggas with no mask. Like, that shit is crazy.
LL Cool J parking lot pimping in a White Castle in Brooklyn, where he ran up on Mr. Smith for a solid gold rope.
Then there were the Houdini robberies. In the mid-80s, Houdini was one of the biggest rap groups in the country. Friends, Freaks Come Out at Night,
Damn, he robbed Freaks Come Out at Night, man. He robbed the Friends, nigga. The ones we can depend on. Like, he robbed them niggas. That's fucking crazy. This nigga, no wonder niggas talking about this nigga, bro. He done stuck up almost everybody that came to town. Fuck is you talking about?
minutes of funk. They were selling out arenas and pushing records. Martin and his crew robbed members of the group anyway. The Rakim situation was more complicated. For years, the street story was that Martin snatched Rakim's signature gold medallion, the big round piece from the photos and music videos, right off his neck. But according to people from the neighborhood, that specific version of the story was exaggerated. What wasn't exaggerated was Martin's actual relationship with Rakim's circle. Martin became close with Eric Barrier, Eric B, and through that friendship, he became a member of the Paid in Full posse, the crew that surrounded Eric B and Rakim. In 1987, when Eric B and Rakim released their debut album Paid in Full, Martin appeared in the photo on the back cover, standing in front of the Jacob Javits Center alongside Eric B, Rakim, Kool G Rap, and a handful of other Brooklyn and Queens figures. That's the contradiction that defined Kelvin Martin. He was robbing hip-hop artists and running with them at the same time. He stood next to the culture's biggest names in photos while his crew was still running through the same nightclubs those artists performed at. There are multiple stories about how Kelvin Martin got the nickname 50 Cent. The most common version ties back to his robbery philosophy. He'd rob anyone for anything, even if all they had was 50 cents. Another version says he once walked into a dice game with 50 cents in his pocket and walked out with $500. And some people in the neighborhood say it was a reference to his size. A $50 for a man who stood 5'2" and weighed 120 pounds. Whatever the origin, the name carried weight in Brooklyn. When people in Fort Greene said 50 Cent, they were talking about the little guy with two long-barrel guns who robbed in broad daylight and never bothered to cover his face. That reputation is what drew Curtis Jackson to the name years later, when the rapper from South Jamaica, Queens, was looking for a stage name in the late 1990s. He chose 50 Cent deliberately. Jackson later said, "I picked the name because it says everything. I wanted to say, I'm the same kind of person 50 Cent was. I provide for myself by any means." The choice carried extra weight because of the connection to Kenneth Supreme McGriff. Curtis Jackson would go on to become one of McGriff's most vocal enemies, recording a track called Ghetto Quran that detailed Supreme's criminal operations by name.
Supreme was the businessman and Prince was the killer.
By taking the name of a Brooklyn robber who'd operated in the same era and circles as McGriff's associates, Jackson was planting a flag in territory that Supreme considered his own. By the fall of 1987, Kelvin Martin had made enough enemies to fill a room. Drug dealers he'd robbed, store owners he'd extorted, crews he'd crossed. When someone robs indiscriminately,
This is why you wear a fucking mask. Don't rob nobody without a mask. If you're gonna be out here doing crimes, bro, at least wear a mask. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't condone none of that shit, but I'm just saying, wear a mask, my nigga. Don't be out here maskless, nigga. You putting yourself in a lot of risk. You putting your family in a lot of risk and things like that.
for years, and never once tries to hide his face while doing it. The list of people who want that person gone gets long. Martin had been staying with his girlfriend, Precious Golston, at her apartment in the Albany Houses, a housing project in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. On the evening of October 20th, 1987, Julio Waymo Acevedo, a teenager from the neighborhood, came by the apartment. He and Martin left together around 10 p.m. A resident found 23-year-old Kelvin Martin on the 7th floor landing, bleeding from gunshot wounds to the head, chest, and stomach. He was rushed to Kings County Hospital, where he held on for 4 days. On October 24th, 1987, Kelvin Darnell Martin, the original 50 Cent, died from hemorrhaging. He was 23 years old, a man who'd been shot 24 times across 9 separate incidents and survived every one, taken out in the stairwell of his girlfriend's building. Julio Acevedo didn't act on his own, according to testimony that emerged during the legal proceedings. He was forced into it. A drug dealer turned government informant named Richard Bush later testified about the plot. According to Bush, local dealers who'd had enough of Martin's robberies and extortion kidnapped Acevedo and his cousin. The terms were simple. Bush laid it out in his testimony. "So we told Acevedo, you go up there and bring 50 downstairs in the hallway. You're going to kill 50 or we're going to kill your cousin." Acevedo was a teenager. He went up to Golston's apartment, got Martin.
Listen, when you in the street, you could be the realest nigga in the street, nigga. But you could get killed by a bitch, nigga. You can get killed by a nigga that ain't even like that for real. But it's cause you outside. Now you vulnerable. And you vulnerable to other niggas because they know your reputation. You don't know theirs. Understand that, bro. People play games. People do mind games and tricks and shit with people, man. People be doing shit like this, playing chess like you playing checkers because you think you got the shit figured out. Because you think niggas don't know you. But it ain't hard to study a nigga.
To leave with him and shot him in the stairwell of the Albany houses. Acevedo himself later confirmed the coercion. My family was going to be killed. I was going to be killed, he said. I was kidnapped, beaten, tortured. He was initially convicted of murder and sentenced to 20 years to life, but after Bush's testimony corroborated the kidnapping claim, a judge overturned the conviction. Acevedo accepted a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter and was eventually released after serving roughly a decade.
The district attorney pointed to Acevedo's long rap sheet and the move for a manslaughter charge. Among a number of crimes, the defendant served a decade in prison for manslaughter.
The story of Julio Acevedo didn't end when he walked out of prison. On March 3, 2013, more than 25 years after he killed Kelvin Martin, Acevedo was behind the wheel of a BMW, speeding northbound on Kent Avenue in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, doing approximately 70 miles per hour, blowing past other cars and switching lanes. At the intersection of Wilson Avenue, he slammed into a livery cab. The backseat passengers were Nachman Glauber, 21, and his wife Razy, also 21. Razy was 7 months pregnant. Both were killed on impact. Their unborn son, Tanchum, was delivered alive via emergency surgery, but died the
I said he was a bitch. He a bitch ass nigga. First of all, why would you be driving so recklessly in traffic? Especially in New York. You got a lot of roads that's fucking like, yeah, that look tight as fuck. They always got fucking traffic in New York. It's just, oh my goodness, bro. This was the dumbest shit I'd have seen by far in somebody documentary. Even though this shit don't got shit to do with him. Dude a bitch. That was the most reckless and most immature thing you could be doing. This is why I hate niggas that be speeding on the road. Because at the end of the day, this is some shit that can actually happen because you're not paying attention and you fucking around trying to rush to get to where the fuck you trying to go.
following day.
What do you want to say to the victims' families?
Once again, I apologize. I can't stress remorse no more than I have. I have stressed it to you several times already. It's not, I can't bring them back.
Acevedo jumped out of the BMW, looked at the wreckage, and ran. He fled New York entirely. 5 days later, on March 7th, the NYPD's warrant squad arrested him in Pennsylvania. During the coverage of the hit and run, reporters dug into Acevedo's background and uncovered his connection to the Kelvin Martin murder. The man who'd killed the original 50 Cent was back in the headlines, this time for killing a young Orthodox Jewish couple and their baby. Brooklyn Supreme Court Justice Neil Feiertag sentenced Acevedo to 25 years to life in prison, 2 counts of second-degree manslaughter, 1 count of criminally negligent homicide, and 2 counts of leaving the scene. Because of his prior criminal history, he was classified as a persistent felony offender, which triggered the enhanced sentence. Kelvin Martin lived 23 years. In that time, he became one of the most feared figures in Brooklyn, a 5'2" stick-up kid from the Fort Greene projects who robbed rappers at White Castle, terrorized nightclubs from Manhattan to Brooklyn, ran a protection racket that preyed.
Man, fuck all that. Look, end of the story, nigga. Point of the situation. You don't want to live to 23, nigga. You want to live further. You want to get to your 30s, nigga. You want to get to your 40s, your 50s, and all that, nigga. You don't want to stop living at 23. You ain't even get a chance to live for real. He had a daughter. That's one thing that I noticed was not mentioned. He has a child. And I only know that because of the rapper 50 Cent. But he didn't even get to watch his daughter grow up. And these be things that niggas don't think about in the heat of the moments, in the heat of a situation, or in the heat of a discussion, or in the heat of whatever they got going on. My main concern with everybody is, you know what I'm saying, take time to figure shit out, because he could have been getting money a whole nother way. And then you be thinking you so tough and you so bad that ain't nobody better than you. And look, he got killed by a coward. He got killed by a coward. Man didn't even stand on his shit when he killed the whole family, pretty much. I mean, he couldn't even take accountability for that. But y'all let me know what the fuck y'all think. Personally, this is probably one of the realest gangsters we done did. I'm gonna say in a little minute, because it ain't really been too many real niggas. And I'm only saying he real because of how he stand and how he stood. He ain't raped nobody. He ain't fucking try to sell drugs to nobody. He might have robbed some niggas, but it don't seem like he smoked too many motherfuckers. But he had a reputation for doing so. And shit, he only lived to 23, my nigga. Like, that's the wild part of the story. Outside of the fact that the nigga was fucking back to it. Y'all observe, y'all like, I used to subscribe and all that shit. I'm out. Peace.
OG to me, boy, watch your back. Hey, these niggas bound to attack. Gotta know your purpose, understand what work is. These snakes is lurking, observing, trying